Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum. Welcome once again to the Suleiman Ravat show. It's election time once again. Well, many thought that the elections would get postponed to around February next year. Didn't happen. The Constitutional Court says it needed to happen now. Well, it's going to happen on the 1st of November. And we're going to be running a series of interviews and debates in the coming weeks so that we can enlighten you further and that you can make a more informed decision and a more informed choice. Starting off the series of discussions, well, we have the EFF. And joining us on the program, we have EFF MP Mohammed Nadir Paulsen. Nadir, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukran so much, Brother Suleiman.
Where are you guys currently? I mean, are you on the road campaigning?
Well, every EFF national leader, public rep, should be in his place of deployment. I am in Harib, Tromsburg, in the Free State, where I'm deployed, and I would imagine every other member of the EFF is in his place of deployment.
So what does it entail? Just to paint a picture for our viewers, they deploy you to Harib in the Bloemfontein. What you've got to what do you have to do there between now and elections?
Well, the process started a few months ago where we had to make sure that we prepare all our branches. So Harib has 23 wards. Harib is the third of the entire Free State that has 23 wards. And every ward must have a branch of the EFF. So we have to go and establish branches and make sure our branches are in good standing so that we could... And then once those branches were all launched, or when they reached 90%, we then went to a regional people's assembly. The regional people's assembly then elects a regional command team which would run the organization within the region and take it towards, for example, the election campaigns. My role here is to see that the regional command team follows the instructions from the central command team, which is the highest decision-making body of the EFF, between national people's assemblies or national conferences. And so we've also elected ward candidates in every ward of Harib, as across the rest of the country, where we have ward candidates in every ward across the country. We've registered those candidates timelessly. We didn't need an extension. We were ready. And I think it should give a lot of confidence to voters that the EFF is an organization that does things when it should be done. We do not do things as and when we feel like. I mean, it's the malaise that is set in South African government, for example, run by the ANC, where things are done as and when they wish.
So you launched the manifesto and simultaneously your new headquarters. Why the name of the late Winnie Mandela?
I think Winnie Mandela embodies everything that we would want from a leader. She has sacrificed. Incidentally, she was banished to the Free State under apartheid, Brandfort. Now Winnie Mandela. So she was banished there. She has really sacrificed for the sake of the people of this country. A contribution to our political liberation is tremendous. We had a good relationship with Mama Winnie. Even after we have formed the EFF, she has never abandoned us as members of the Economic Freedom Fighters. She remained close to the Commander-in-Chief and many members within the organization. And she was not ashamed to associate with us and to see us as her children.
Mm.
And, but over and above that, her sacrifice needs to be immortalized.
Are you not concerned in terms of the identity of your party that she never formally left the ANC? The ANC will always claim her as their own. naming your headquarters after her, where she's got such a strong link with the ANC?
She has never left the ANC, but I think that the ANC has abandoned her. Just this morning I was looking at a video that someone posted where she was treated in a rather indignified manner by the then president of the ANC. So, no woman should have to endure such indignation. So, whether the ANC still feels that they have done justice to the legacy of Mama Winnie remains to be seen. I have my doubts.
Another issue with regards to the launch of the manifesto and the new headquarters, before we start talking about the manifesto and the elections specifically, was about the COVID regulations. Now, I know the EFF has been very strong in its criticism and its opposition of government in terms of restrictions and in terms of regulations. However, the concern being raised is that are we not setting out a message of ill discipline is okay? That anybody who disagrees with the particular rule of the government is not bound to abide by it. I see some from the other political parties have said that the EFF has been ducking Parliament for the last 2 years out of fear of the pandemic, but now when it comes to launching the manifesto, then they want to flout the rules.
Brother Suleiman, we have not ducked Parliament because of fear of COVID. I mean, we adhere to the regulations as far as we can, and we sanitize, wear masks, physically distance. It's about the best that we can do. And the EFF has been present in Parliament as and when it was possible. But as I've said to you, we've got an organization that is still in its formative stages. We need to build a very strong organization. And the Parliament sittings were virtual, and the ANC, we said to them, open up Parliament and we'll attend, but don't give us an option of virtual and physical. Because then we will go to our deployments, do our work, and we will attend virtually. And that is what we did. We've worked very hard. We maintained our organization. We were ready as and when they proclaimed an election date. So I don't think, and we have been in our deployments, we have serviced our constituents, we have sent through their issues to the relevant departments. So I think we've done more than any other political party has done.
Okay, we are busy chatting to Brother Mohammed Nadir Paulsen. He's an EFF MP, as we all know. And this is now the beginning of our discussion with regards politics and the upcoming elections and the political processes and the different political parties. All right, so we've got Brother Nadir back with us. Yeah, so I was saying, I was asking, take us through the process of the development of the manifesto behind the scenes. Our viewers just have to understand that they're on the road and they're busy campaigning and they're busy getting things ready. It's peak season for political parties, and I suppose at this time of this kind of an election, it's much different also because of the pandemic and the delay and all of that. So yeah, it kind of happens like this. As soon as Nadir is ready, I think he'll give us a thumbs up, Nadir, and then we'll take it from there. I think just trying to get himself a little bit sorted there. The EFF's manifesto, we'll talk about that in a bit, and then some of the hot button issues. Okay, so are we good to go, Nadir?
You're good to go.
Yeah, so right, the manifesto, how was it developed behind the scenes? Was there a specific approach that you guys took? And is there anything significantly different about this manifesto compared to the EFF's manifestos of previous elections?
I think this time, we've followed the same process where our manifesto is not a manifesto that is hatched in some boardroom by a bunch of people wearing suits. We wanted to engage the citizens of this country, for them to share their lived experiences with us, and not just to tell us what they see is wrong, but also to tell us what they how they feel it should be solved. So we've went to communities across the country. I myself have been part of that process. I went to speak to fishermen on the West Coast, in the Western Cape, in the Overberg, in the Western Cape, and whatever they have said, they find as a problem. We've even named companies that have been highlighted as the ones who have been exploiting people and abusing them. So we've highlighted those companies in our manifesto, so they are being named and shamed, and obviously the EFF does not take the exploitation of the working class lightly. We will make sure that we do not leave, that it's not just a question of them being named in our manifesto, but that we will pay them a visit and make sure that we resolve the issues as raised by people that have given input to our sectoral meetings: fisheries, farm workers, mining workers, security guards, taxi drivers, taxi owners, taxi companies, members of the public, every community. So the process was fairly detailed, fairly comprehensive. The EFF Elections Manifesto is a booklet of 572 pages, where we've gone to the detail of saying what it is we're going to do, when we are going to do it, and where we are going to do it. So it's not just a list of wishes. It is a list of commitments that we have made to the people that have come forward and contributed to our manifesto.
Have you tracked your own progress in terms of your previous manifestos? What percentage of what was in there was achieved by your own analysis?
Well, Brother Suleiman, the first cardinal pillar of the EFF is land expropriation without compensation for equal distribution in use. So if one looks at it, 2017, 2018, 24 years into democracy, there was no question of land being expropriated and redistributed. The EFF put that on the top of our political agenda, and it became the most spoken about political topic. And the current motion to expropriate land without compensation is currently being considered in Parliament. We've gone through a whole series of public engagements, public meetings, where public have given the input and have overwhelmingly supported the EFF motion to expropriate land without compensation. So I think that in itself, for a party that has committed itself to a particular goal, and that has come that far to achieve that goal despite not being the governing party. Then there are various other commitments that we've made, 2014, 2016, that we've lived up to, that we've gone in defense of people that are being oppressed, people that are being abused, people that are subjected to racism. We've gone and we've addressed those issues. And I think, for example, if we look at the insourcing of cleaning staff and security staff in Johannesburg and Tshwane, it is the EFF motion that has brought that about. So there's been a whole host of successes that we can be proud of as the economic freedom fighters.
Let's look at some of the specifics. One of the criticisms of the manifesto in terms of taxing the rich, the argument is that the rich in this country are amongst the highest taxpayers in the world. Any further taxation is just going to cause them to flee abroad, creating a further imbalance. Your response to that?
Well, Brother Suleiman, if you think of it, hey, if the EFF says that we will provide 150 units of free electricity, we will provide a certain amount of free water, what we are essentially doing is putting money in the pockets of poor people. They will have more disposable cash. That money will then enter that economy. Those people that are complaining about paying higher taxes, their incomes will increase substantially with the amount of money that the EFF, through its policies, will be putting into the economy. It is a very short-sighted and selfish thing to think that I'm going to be paying more taxes. Rich people are people who own businesses, who have investments. We'd be putting more money into the economy that would land up. So you're paying more taxes, but you're getting so much more profits in return.
The issue of land, you touched on that earlier on, right? There still seems to be a lot of ambiguity in terms of where exactly the EFF stands on the issue of land. Sometimes you hear people say, so what does it mean? If we work for a few generations to be able to purchase a house or purchase a property, does it mean we have to give it up to the state that is so inefficient as it is in managing its assets? Does it mean that I can't own a house? What exactly does the EFF's position on land mean? And what happens to those who already own property and have worked very hard for it?
Yeah. Well, Brother Suleiman, the most important aspect about the land issue is that the state becomes the custodian of all land, right? As to what other modalities will exist, those are up for negotiation, but ultimately the state is the custodian of all land. So, for example, if you own vast tracts of land in Eiserfontein on the west coast, and you've never ever been there, you live in some European country, and you've never lived there, you've never used it, you purchased it for speculation that at some stage there's going to be a demand for land, and it's an immoral thing. You're using land to as an investment to make money off people at some stage when there's a need for it. So we are saying that all land not being used should be expropriated. That's the one thing. On the other hand, there must also be, and we acknowledge, there must be security of tenure for those people who own property, where they live with their families. Those are some of the modalities and some of the issues that we have considered. If there are others, it must be brought to the table. But in terms of the custodianship rests with the state, ultimately, as it should be.
So are you saying that your average homeowner or person who owns a property from which he's running his business, under your existing policies, he won't necessarily lose ownership of that property? It's just that ultimately the custodian is the state?
That's correct. Now, look, anything that's been used for the purpose for which it was acquired, whether it's to live, to run a business, to farm, as long as it's in use, I don't think there should be any concern from South Africans about the security of tenure for that property.
The issue of race, right, it becomes a very touchy issue, especially in relation to the EFF, because you've had national leaders making generalized statements like all Indians are racist. Coloureds have also come into the radar. Attacks on Gandhi, who was far from perfect, but seen globally as a man who evolved from his initial viewpoints and made significant contributions. you get a perception that Indians, coloreds, and obviously whites, when they hear the tone and they hear the speak of especially your most prominent leaders, they tend to feel that these EFF chaps, they think all of us are racist. We ought to be second-class citizens in our own country. We don't belong as much as others belong. And that makes them somewhat skeptical to vote for the EFF. How would you allay those fears?
Yeah, no, it's a very strange question to be asking me, because I've never felt any form of racism towards myself. In fact, outside of my political work, I have very good relationships with all members of the EFF, and to come from the community where I grew up in, and to be warmly accepted. And I think and that's the important thing. Apartheid has damaged us, and we need to be aware of it. There were strata of whites, Indians, so-called colored, and Africans, and in that sequence, they were favored. Now, that's historical. That's not something that I'm sucking out of my thumb. That's a historical fact, And obviously, with the advent of democracy and us getting the opportunity to really address issues that were wrong in this country, including the issues of racism, including the issues of classism, So it is not just the EFF that says that Indians are racist. Indian judges says Indians are racist. So I think, number one, there should be reflection, because I think every member of the EFF at a national level has got an Indian friend or Indian associates that they are with, and at our manifesto there were Indian people that I've never seen before, and surely that, some people acknowledge maybe there's some truth in the matter, that we do have some sort of prejudice that are alienating us from the rest of South Africa.
Sure.
And we need to engage on those issues. But I must say, I'm very happy that the Indian people I know, yourself included, do not exhibit any form of classism or racism, for that matter. So, and it's something that we speak about openly. And it shouldn't be something that we shy away. It shouldn't be something that we're offended about or defensive about. Let us engage on the issues of racism. Every other political party wants to sweep issues of racism under the carpet. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do what has been done for 27 years and perpetuate the injustices meted upon African people merely for being African.
I think all of our viewers would agree with you, Nazir, that racism exists in the Indian community, in the colored community, in the white community. There would be some would debate and say that even blacks could be racist, but that's a different discussion for a different day. I think the issue is not about approaching it constructively, and you're absolutely correct. We can't sweep it under the carpet. For far too long, it has remained unresolved, and all of us have been socially conditioned, and we've grew up with certain prejudices, and we've got to deal with it. I think what makes Indians and coloreds and whites somewhat wary and scared of aligning with the EFF, even though there may be coloreds and Indians and whites within the ranks of the EFF, is this kind of generalized statements that every Indian is racist and all Indians are racist. They definitely would be Indians. There may be many, or coloreds or whites for that matter. But, it's almost like when you travel abroad and they say, well, there's a murder every 30 seconds in South Africa, so that makes all South Africans murderers. That kind of generalization is absurd. And that is what perpetuates the fear, is that I think the gripe is that there should be a more constructive way rather than this political rhetoric approach to deal with the issue of race.
Yeah. You're correct. So who should be the ones to initiate that constructive engagement, right? Surely, you know, I mean, I know many Indian people, wonderful people. They treat their African colored staff and beautifully, wonderfully, warm, caring, gentle. I mean, right now I'm staying at a place here in Harip where the proprietor is sitting in and having coffee with his staff and speaking about their issues. So, it's, and I don't know if it's because I'm here or if it's but but I think you're correct. We should engage as to who initiates that engagement, and this is the failings of an ANC-led government. That this there was never this process where we went through, and there's the sense of respect and regard for everyone in this country, right? So why should one community? Because I enter Harib, where the Sotho speaking people. I enter Northwest, where the Setswana speaking people. And I don't experience the kind of racism that they would experience if they entered my community. Why are they so warm and accepting? When our communities, Indians and the so-called colored communities, are not warm and accepting towards to other population groups, there's a serious problem, and we have to acknowledge that. It's, I said I would never be lost anywhere in this country because, people are very warm and accepting. So I would wish that if Setswana and Sesotho people and Venda people go to Indian and so-called colored communities, that they would also be accepted. That those people would also want to experience our traditions, our cultures, and hear about our heritage, just as much as we want to know about theirs. And it's beautiful, the spirituality of African people. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. Not to labor the point of race, because I want to move on to other issues, but then would you not be willing to concede that when your national leaders like Malema, kind of generalize and say Indians are racist or all Indians are racist, rather than stimulating the kind of dialogue that you very eloquently referred to that needs to happen, it kind of just unnecessarily makes people defensive because they now focus on the generalization rather than the substance of the issue?
Well, Brother Suleiman, I am not the spokesperson of the Commander-in-Chief. He's very, very much capable of speaking for himself. But if you look at last week on the voter registration drive, and he went into to Phoenix, and you're being very unfair of actually not acknowledging that he is, he somehow waved an olive branch and said, Indians and African are all part of this country and should start working together. So we must also be honest. The last thing he said about the matter was very beautiful. So I think it may not nullify to you, but to me there
Abrogates.
So I'm not his spokesperson. These are issues that you can only address with him because his lived experience are very different from my lived experience, as are yours.
Sure, but being the leader, obviously, what he says is then it taints the party. But anyway, let's move on to the issue of VBS, right? And although you're not in any way implicated, to my knowledge, but again, when national leaders are implicated, when Zuma was implicated, it brought the entire ANC into under the microscope. How do the rank and file of the EFF feel, and how do you then allay the fears of people out there who say, well, initially it was speculation, accusation, but now, paper trail, emails, all of these kind of things have come to the fore via investigative journalists, where it's almost like they're saying that it can be linked right back to Floyd Shivampo's bank account and right back to Malema's bank account. Is this a challenge for the party, and how does the party approach this challenge?
Firstly, for me, I think I have confidence in the rule of law. It may not go the way we want it to, but I have confidence in the rule of law. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I have taken an oath to uphold the law, and I think, if there is any evidence strong enough to proceed and to prosecute, I don't think there would have been hesitation on the side of the NPA to do just that. So I'm not going to base my opinion on an issue based on conjecture. Because, surely if I have evidence that Brother Suleiman Ravat has committed a crime, and as a law-abiding citizen, as a Muslim, you know, I am duty bound to go and report that crime, to make sure that the person responsible for the crime is being prosecuted. And up until that happens, and even if there's a prosecution, we must always abide by the rule of law. That, if there's no prosecution, where's the crime? Surely if there's a dead body, there has to be a murder.
Legally speaking, you're absolutely correct, right? But politically speaking, it works differently. I mean, if you look at the Zuma and Kandla matter, long before the Constitutional Court ruling in favor of the EFF or even the Public Protector's report, political parties, including yourselves, were making the call for him to go based on what was already out there in the public domain. So yes, you're right that legally speaking, a person is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. But that, as we can see in South Africa, can take the next 30 years.
There's not even a question of innocent proven guilty because there's no case, there's no charge. There's no summons to appear in court on a particular charge. So there's not even issue innocent until proven guilty. There's not even that issue here. Because innocent until proven guilty is if there's a charge, but there's not even that. If there's a prosecution that's going to be started, but nothing of that. So I'm telling, we have here the EFF, third biggest party, a party set to become the governing party probably sooner than we imagine. A party that is led by an inspirational leader. That very leader that would be the reason that people would vote EFF rather than the ANC. And I'm asking myself, if there's so much evidence, why haven't they done anything about it? Because, we know the media in South Africa. The worst president we've had since democracy. But if you read about him in the newspapers, you'd swear this man walks on water.
Are you saying CR is worse than Zuma?
CR is worse than all of them put together. You can, amongst African leaders.
All right, Nazir, we're fast running out of time. What's the growth like of the party in terms of membership, right? So you guys kind of just got started before the 2014 elections, if I remember correctly. Less than a decade in existence. You've contested 2 national, and this is now your second local government elections. In terms of membership, branches, what are the figures telling you? What's the growth looking like?
Well, I must say there's been incremental growth. Mm-hmm. It wasn't from first there's nothing and now there's something. It's been incremental. Our branches have been incremental. We busy putting proper systems in place, proper processes in place. So, those are not easy things to do. There are many parties that don't go through, and to me, as former project manager, in the engineering environment, there has to be a certain process. And I think that's what gives me a lot of comfort, and that's what gives us all a lot of comfort, that the process was proper. That we started off 20 2014, we went to our first elections. At the end of 2014, we went to our first National People's Assembly. Okay, so obviously there was the regional assemblies, the provincial assemblies, getting our delegates to go get. So the democracy is sound. It is the most democratic political party in South Africa. Everything follows a democratic process. So I'm very comfortable that we've got a strong internal democracy within the EFF. That's the most important thing. That there is no, contrary to popular belief, there is no one person that dictates everything. Obviously, we admire and love our leadership, but it is a very strong, a party based on very strong democratic principles. So that is very important, that democracy is established, that there are proper ways of raising the issues that you have within the organization, that we can address those issues. And we have a strong discipline amongst our members. So there's a National Disciplinary Committee, of which I'm a member, that makes sure that there is a strong discipline, that there is nobody stealing money that does not belong to them. There's nobody going to try and get tenders from municipalities and get their friends and families favored, because if those things come to the organization, we will adopt a very hard approach to it. So I'm very happy. We've got strong democracy. We've got proper disciplinary processes in place. We've got established regional command teams in all the regions in the country. We've got established provincial command teams in all the provinces, very strong provinces. Women are well represented in every structure of the organization. And I'm sorry that I have to mention it, but, because it shouldn't be an issue. But we are the one party that has made sure that we have a strong, that we empower women. In fact, we've got more female members of parliament than male members of parliament. Unlike any other political party, there are small political parties that have no female members. And of the bigger three political parties, we have the highest representation of women and young people.
The issue of funding, recently when political parties had to disclose, and these disclosures were made public, there wasn't much disclosed by the EFF, and the response was that you're pretty much surviving on what the members have got to pay and what people like yourself have to give back to the party. Many are finding that difficult to believe. I mean, you're a growing party. Surely you need some of the big bucks.
No, who's going to give us money? We want to nationalize mines. We want to expropriate land. Who's going to give us money? It is surely on the contributions of members, membership fees, and also of party levies that every public representative of the EFF pays.
The tobacco kingpins who gave you guys the startup money, what has happened to them?
Like I've said to you earlier, I don't base any of my opinions on conjecture. I'm a man of reason.
No, but Malema acknowledged that the initial deposit when the party was registered was from that source.
Well, I don't think there's any of that money within the coffers of the EFF.
Realistically speaking, realistically speaking, right?
I can't comment on things I don't have knowledge of.
But surely, as an MP Nadir, as a senior member of the party, you must be keeping yourself aware. You must be doing some checks and balances in your own mind, just so that you keep your own leadership in check.
I have my role to play in the organization. There are people that sit on the finance committee. I don't go and interfere in theirs, and they don't interfere. There has to be that compartmentalization of functions here. We don't step on each other's toes, and I have full confidence that those people who sit in those committees make sure that everything within the EFF is legally sound, as do all of us. So I've got confidence in those, my comrades, just as I expect them to have confidence in what I do and how I do it.
Two quick things before we conclude, right? The first is every political party will say we're in it to win the election. Fair enough, that's political speak. But realistically speaking, what percentage of the vote are you guys looking at?
We're taking all municipalities. There's no other. The smart choice is with the EFF. If you want a municipality that works, you're going to have to elect a party that has shown that even under trying circumstances of a pandemic, that we worked. That young people have put their confidence in the EFF. Old people have put their confidence in the EFF. People from all walks of life have put their confidence in the EFF. So voters should vote smartly this time. Forget about those other ones. Don't waste your vote on people that steal money, people that promote matriculants into senior positions to make decisions about what happens in your metros. Imagine a party with number 1 and number 2 are mere matriculants, university dropouts, to make decisions about municipalities with all that expertise that is required. The expertise and the level of experience and academic acumen only exists within the EFF, nowhere else. The ANC is fine, but they are old and they fall asleep, and you can't be asleep on these things. I mean, I've been up since Fajr this morning. I can't go and sleep because I had to go and have assemble all our candidates here to take reports on their progress. The work of an EFF MP is very different from the work of an ANC or I don't know what other party exists, MP, because we have to work every day. The ANC could probably get their 3-4 million votes because there are people that will be gullible. The DA could possibly get their 1 million votes because there are people that are racist. The EFF works hard for every one of those 8 million votes that we're going to get this year.
Nazir Paulsen, all the best to you and to your party, and shukran for your time. We always appreciate it.
Shukran so much, and I can't wait to see you down in Cape Town very soon one day, Brother Suleiman.
Inshallah, hopefully. Sooner rather than later. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Well, that was the EFF's Mohammed Nazir Paulsen talking to us about their manifesto, their approach to the elections in the coming weeks. We talk to the other parties, inshallah. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.